I was close. I was this close to my theory around Yuri being true. The fact that he's going to be the Gnau. I had a theory a while back that, yeah, Yuri having no memories of his past before the show begins, him always being sort of the center of this whole situation over and over again, a lot of implying that Setsu got stuff from Yuri, that Yuri was going to be a Gnau, that he was going to be the one that was infecting people. And as we find out in this episode, no, it's that he was created by the Gnau. So it's close. It was very, very close. I mean, he could still be. He could still be if you like go ahead enough time. You know, you have all these time loops. Time is not a really constant thing in this storyline. So he could essentially have created himself. He just doesn't know yet. There's a lot of oddities that can come for this entire episode, but I think this is really cool because despite the fact this episode is massive reveals, we're seeing like the origins of Yuri and this whole situation, and we're tying it all together. There's a lot of tie-ins together, but I like the fact there's still a lot sort of not answered yet. And I think the big one for me right now is, what is this key? What is the keys tie-in with all this stuff? Did the Gnau specifically create Yuri in that timeline, knowing that Setsu would give them a key, or will the key be a separate entity that is going to combat the Gnau? That's the one I think would be kind of interesting if they went that route. The idea of another sort of oddity, a thing that is collecting information that is trying to go against something that has a mass of information. And of course, the other question still remains is who Kukrushka is. I have my theories around that, and it's more around the idea that I think whenever it's not Maman, it might potentially be a shrine maiden that isn't fully sold on the Gnau. Because we obviously have Yuriko, and Yuriko seems sold on the Gnau. I'm wondering if possibly Kukrushka will be a cyberized mind of a shrine maiden that knows equally as much information as Yuriko getting the information from the Gnau. But anyways, before I get too far, let's go through the episode proper so we can kind of go through each piece by piece that I don't miss anything. But yes, opening up the episode with Yuri waking up, not in the pod, but in his room. I think that was probably the biggest red flag immediately. I'm like, wait, so did he not loop? I thought at first the potential that he didn't loop, because then he starts talking about the fact that, yeah, he stopped the Gnosia, and do I go see Yuriko next? I'm like, what, do you gonna go see Yuriko that's frozen? Are you gonna defrost her, whatever? But no, it's been reset, and he just woke up inside of his bedroom, which is kind of weird. But yes, he goes in there. Everybody's, having fun in the cafe, talking about how, yeah, they made it successfully. Setsu apparently saved everybody. Good job, Setsu. And then they have a little quick meeting where Jonas is trying to push them to go to the military base to report the attack on the planet. And this was kind of weird. And I'm going to put a pin in this. I'm going to put a little pin in this because I think this is probably going to be important later on. Rashio is complaining, saying, no, we shouldn't go to the military base because they're going to inspect us and ask a bunch of questions. It's going to take forever for us to get through that. And Remnan's over here uncomfortable. It doesn't seem like he wants to go there. And Jonas is like, no, this is protocol. And then it's left to Setsu, who's like, I'll make a report anyway, so we don't have to do that. And then so they decide not to go to the military base. They're going to go straight to this other location, which Remnan starts to thank Rashio, going, thank you so much. No, I didn't do it for you. No, you knew that I was like illegally escaping or whatever, or that I ran away illegally, which I think is probably because he's technically owned by somebody, and I think he's fleeing from that. But Rashio's like, you know what? You're really creepy. I'm like, Rashio probably doesn't want to go to the military base because it's just going to waste time. I can see him being a logical person that sees a waste in this. But there's another side of me that kind of wonders if he actually does want to help out Remnan and want to use his knowledge to help out Remnan and just doesn't want to admit it. Like a little tsundere moment there or something like that. Like that whole interaction right there was weird. And not the fact that he's calling Remnan weird. It's weird because it's just a weird interaction. So I kind of want to pin that there for later on. Possibly that might be something important. But anyways, after that whole situation happens, Yuri's trying to figure out what is in this loop that possibly the key wants. Is there some sort of thing in this mystery? I actually thought it was going to go along with the idea that none of them die from the Gnosia and they actually go visit the doctor's place, because even Atome was asking to go visit the doctor's place. So I'm like, maybe we'll get a little bit of insight into these characters without the Gnosia involved. Like this might be our beach episode, so to speak. I don't know. But yes, that's when Kukrushka walks in on Yuri as he's kind of contemplating and says, soon, the universe is going to end soon. Again, Kukrushka knows something. Whoever's in Kukrushka right now seems to be tied in with everything. She even said that in the previous episodes, or at least, again, Yuri sort of surmised that from her body language or whatever, that he's going to find out soon who Kukrushka is. And I think it's going to end up being that she's potentially going to be, again, a shrine maiden, unlike Yuriko. It could be another Yuriko. That'd be another interesting thing. But some sort of data from the Gnau or the cyberization that has come into her instead of Maman. And this could be a possibility that, yes, Maman's coming from the same situation. It's just whichever one hits her body, that's the one that's going to be inside of her and either go crazy or potentially help out Yuri. Because it seems like whenever it's not Maman, they help out Yuri a lot. They're really kind and they're very useful. So it makes me believe that, yes, whoever this is could potentially be somebody tied in with the Gnau, just not a sympathizer, not somebody that is trying to help that out or a worshiper or whatever. But yeah, she's like, the world's going to end, and then they have the alert. He runs into Setsu. Setsu's like, it's okay, there's no Gnosia here. You can say that you're a looper. There's something in there. What is it? Did you see anything? No, I didn't come from the pod this time. There's somebody in the pod, and it turns out to be Yuri. And the entire universe destabilizes and breaks. Yeah, the world, the universe, and everything just becomes completely unstable the moment that he sees himself. There's an anomaly in this universe, and it just completely collapses. Now, this is where we have, yes, the appearance of Yuriko. And Yuriko basically lays out the logic behind all this stuff before she pretty much uses all the information that was given to her and leaves. And that information is that, yes, Yuri is not supposed to be in this universe because Yuri is a bug. That Yuri is a bug created by the Gnau and planted in a world where Yuri had died. And that's why he doesn't have any memories of his past, because he was placed there, created there to replace the last Yuri. It kind of plays it out as if in that original first world, the very first episode, that there was a Yuri there, they got attacked by the Gnosia, and then at some point when he was in the pod, my assumption here is that a Gnosia came by and killed him while he was in the pod and deleted him. He has to be deleted. And again, we've seen that with Otome. When Otome was attacked by Yuri and, was it Shaming and Comet? Basically, she's cyberized. And I was saying it back there, it looks like it's potentially a cyberization of her body, and it goes in this little wormhole and disappears. And I think that's what happened with the original Yuri from episode 1, is they were in that pod, a Gnosia came by, cyberized him, got rid of him, deleted him, and then it seems like at that point, Yuriko came by, seen the pod was empty, got a message from Gnau to put Yuri there, and put this new bug version of Yuri there, and I'm guessing probably potentially for a reason, he runs into Setsu, Setsu gives him the key, and the key allows him, we think at the time, the key allows him to transport to different worlds. But, and here's the oddity, but Setsu says specifically, whenever the key activates, it sends your consciousness to your other self in another universe, and then you replace the consciousness. If a body were to be transferred, it would cause the world itself to collapse. So Setsu over here is doing the same thing, but only her consciousness is going around, and thus she never experiences, or at least she claims, even though it seems like she knows about it, she never causes an anomaly where the universe itself collapses. Unless she's ran into a situation where Yuri potentially transferred into another world with Yuri. But anyways, that aside, Yuri himself is both consciousness and body transferring, and that could be due to the Gnau. The Gnau is transferring his body with his consciousness with the key. So I think there is possibility that the Gnau sent Yuri there specifically to get the key from Setsu. But the oddity here is that the Gnau, I'm assuming, is giving him the ability to transfer his body as well. And that is causing anomalies. And it seems like Yuriko is here to give him that truth now. The question mark is, why is Yuriko giving them information now? I'm assuming the Gnau wants him to do that. But again, it still remains the question mark for me at this point is, what does the key have to do with any of this stuff? I'm assuming at this point, this key is a second group that potentially is countering it. That despite what I said earlier, the Gnau sent Yuri here now in order to try something out to, as he kind of points it later on, the idea of they may be trying to determine something, a universe of countless individuals struggling to communicate with each other, or a universe ruled by a single greater will like the Gnaus. Again, it all lines up the same as the key. It makes me almost believe the key is the Gnau, but I almost want to think the Gnau is something separate. I mean, it all lines up that the key should be a Gnau, but is it the same Gnau? I don't know. But again, this all sort of does confirm my original theory, because they did initially say in the very beginnings of this entire story that a Gnosia is created whenever a Gnau attacks a human and infects them. So this does play into my theory that whenever we see the Gnosia and they're taking people out, it looks like cyberizing. The cyberizing concept seemed like it'd be the same sort of effect that was happening before. It all kind of lines up. It all kind of lines up. But that all kind of breaks Yuri. Yuri is very, very broken by this whole situation. It does get a little bit into, yes, the Hoshibune and the fact that the shrine maidens of them were serving the Gnau. That explains why Yuriko's helping them out. That Yuri himself cannot exist in a world where Yuri is still alive, and thus any world where the Gnosia don't attack and Yuri doesn't die, he's not going to be able to go in that world. And they kind of show that. They show like little brief shots of him trying to be existing in certain worlds where the actual Yuri is talking to Setsu, and the moment that Setsu acknowledges him, it breaks again. Like any universe where he thinks he can want to exist, he can't. He doesn't have a place to stay in, which is interesting. Which sucks, obviously, because at this point, it seems to indicate that Yuri's trying to get out of being stuck in these worlds, that he wants to exist in a world specifically that doesn't have Gnosia infectees. And it does seem like he's not going to be able to do that. Unless he does go to a world where Yuri does die, and then he's able to save everybody from the Gnosia immediately. Or he himself is infected and he just isolates himself. Yeah, the concept behind the Gnau, though, was interesting because it does kind of beg the question of the chicken egg situation. You have the Hoshibune, which had these shrine maidens that were going around and they were trying to get people to join them, to become cyberized and join this collective. And that essentially seemingly is how the Gnau itself was created, is this collective of minds that created this godlike being in the universe. But at the same time, did they do that before the Gnau existed? How do they go around and collect consciousnesses to create the Gnau when the Gnau is created by the collective of the consciousnesses? Which again does go to my theory that I think there's a time aspect here where the Gnau exists in order to, command the Shining Maidens to collect the consciousness, because it already collected the consciousness and went back in time and messed with them again. Okay, I'm getting a little bit too deep into some theories here, but it's interesting. It's interesting. I like this stuff. I like this stuff. Anyways, it wraps up with Yuriko saying that all the information was given to him, sends him off, and then again, he finds himself once again and breaks again. But yeah, that's pretty much the entire episode. As much as there was a lot of reveals and stuff like that, there's not really... it's like it reveals so much that there's not really much to speculate on. Again, I think my current question marks around still technically what is Levi. Again, I still think that Levi could potentially be a sort of, spawn off of Hoshibune, and that's why Yuriko is there. And that is pretty much what's tying it all together. At the same time, I think there really is a lot to be said here, that this is all a system, a ship that was set up for the sake of getting this knowledge, that the Gnau potentially could have created this ship, stuck him on here, create him on here in order to do these loops, get information about that, force individuals to communicate with each other, create this hive mind of AI. Like, I do see that being like a little bit of a parallels to AI to this Gnau, that it's not people like cyberizing their brain to AI right now, ? But there's a collective of information from online internet of communication of people that's all being sucked to these AIs, and it's creating a consciousness that could eventually want to question if we should exist. It's just a different take on AI, right? It's kind of like a different take on AI right now, but it's super interesting, and I'm looking forward to more. But that's my thoughts on the episode. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, hit the like button down below. If you like this content and want to support the channel more, become a member. Until next time, y'all take care.